Prepare yourselves. The bells have tolled. Shelter your weak, your young, and your old. Each of you shall pay the final sum. Cry for mercy! The reckoning has come!
The origins of Hallow's End have been lost to time, but practice of the holiday can be traced far back in the history of the human kingdoms. Both Gilneas and Lordaeron once celebrated their own forms of Hallow's End. Now the Gilneans have spread the practice to Stormwind City and the rest of the Alliance, while the undead of Lordaeron celebrate Hallow's End as the day they broke free from the Lich King's indomitable will. As the seasons change from autumn to winter, so too does Hallow's End represent a time of great change. Above all else, the holiday provides a catalyst for people to symbolically let go of the past. It should be noted, though, that Hallow's End is not a time of mourning. It is one for embracing the unknown and heading boldly into it. As part of the celebration, the people of Lordaeron would traditionally erect a large straw effigy, known as the Wickerman, to symbolically set aflame. It was believed that throwing a branch into the Wickerman's fire would burn away any unwanted feelings, fears, sorrows, old loves. This was originally a peasant ritual, but at some point it became popularized enough that yearly celebrations were held at Capital City. A new legend has since been added to the myths of Hallow's End, that of the Headless Horseman. The tale of Sir Thomas Thompson, now known as the Headless Horseman. Sir Thomas, beloved husband and father, was a knight of the Silver Hand. Yet when it came to the plague spreading across Lordaeron, he could not understand. Why could they not drive the plague out? Why did the light spurn its devout? Supplies were short, leaving many people starving and desperate, so that when plagued grain arrived on their doorsteps, they were easily infected. Worried for his family, Sir Thomas secured passage for them on a ship to Kalimdor. With news of more falling to the scourge threat, it seemed they would not win the war. From the ashes of the Silver Hand rose the Scarlet Crusade, an order dedicated to cleansing the undead plague. They marched from town to town, slaying any undead they came across, and ensuring no more civilians were lost. But protection quickly turned to suspicion. The Lich King had played them for fools before. Couldn't anyone be a scourge conspirator? The beloved Baron Rivendare had plagued a whole continent with his gift of grain, so it stood to reason that the Lich King continued his covert campaign. When Sir Thomas and the Scarlet Crusade traveled across Lordaeron, they saw not healthy refugees, but unwitting pawns. So Sir Thomas put them to the sword, one and all. Not their pleas nor their screams could get him to stall. The deaths weighed heavily on Sir Thomas's soul, but it would be more time before they exacted their toll. It was months later, in what is now known as the Western Plaguelands, that Sir Thomas would finally balk at all of the blood on his hands. The Scarlet Crusade spared no expense, razing each and every town. And so on one fateful day, Sir Thomas unknowingly struck his own family down. But the ship to Kalimdor, you might say, damaged by a storm, and never left the bay. The Thompsons had stayed in Lordaeron, fleeing the scourge, until at last their paths reconverged. Sir Thomas blindly struck down refugees as they fled his sword, convinced all were infected, until he saw the family he adored. He gazed in horror at their lifeless bodies, slain by his pious might. Sir Thomas lost two things that day: his family and his faith in the light. He was taken to the Scarlet Monastery, utterly broken by grief, until his comrades decided he was to be let out on All Hallows' Eve. It was a time for burning away one's sorrows and fears, and so they hoped Sir Thomas might move on with prayers. But he had given himself completely to insanity, and now saw all as nothing but depravity. When set upon the field of battle, Sir Thomas turned on both friend and foe, and so the Scarlet Crusade was forced to cut down one of its own. Sir Thomas's head tumbled from his body, decapitated. But as it turned out, death was not all he was fated, for that was not to be the end of Sir Thomas's story, as the Dreadlord Balnazar warped his corpse for his own glory. He raised Sir Thomas from the dead, cursing him forevermore, to haunt towns at Hallow's End as a fell, twisted horror. Now the Headless Horseman razes villages with a cleansing fire, believing only himself righteous, and everyone else a liar. In his delusion, he carries on his task to purge the undead, when in truth it is he who has been corrupted and gravely misled. His story serves as a warning to all: even the most devout can fall. They say no mercy on this night abides, on Hallow's End, when the horsemen rise. But perhaps his soul can yet find rest, though it will take more than a sword to the chest. 'Tis the horseman's head you must vanquish, for Sir Thomas to have an end to his anguish.